Every time I hear somebody go, "Oh, so you're a tagger," I totally correct them and say that is just absolutely like calling me a honky, and shut the fuck up.
Space was limited on the Howard line.
Imagine walking through an alley or on a train and seeing graffiti as far as the arm can reach. You know, and most neighborhoods and trains and buses look like that. I mean, they were caked with so many different tags and different colors. You won't see that today. You know, that's what I miss. You know, and not even knowing a writer, but knowing of him because you've seen him all over the city, hundreds of different buses.
And you do meet that kid, you already respect him, sort of, because like, oh yeah, I seen you up, okay.
Right, and you don't see that. I mean, you won't see a piece right on the side of a train or a train that's covered with tags and throw-ups. You know, you won't see that anymore, and that's the part of graffiti that I miss. You know, the part that screamed chaos. You know, that smacked of out of control. You know what I'm saying? That's the part I miss, and that's gone. You know.
Graphs, that's like, to me, that's everything. You know what I'm saying? Because when I first came out, like I said, you know, there's a lot of other things I could have been doing. You know what I'm saying? And I choose the graph route, which I believe did a lot for me. You know what I'm saying? Because no telling what I would have been on. I still done made some wrong turns, but this what keep me sane. You know what I'm saying? This is my sanity. That graph, that's what keep me alive. You know what I'm saying?
Because I know, man, like you nowadays, if you get caught, you're going to go jail for 2 years, man. That's sick. 2 years in prison, man. And I'm a pudgy white boy. Ooh. No.
I would say this though, back before the buff came, if you were to say you think they'd ever clean the city like they did, nobody would say yes. Because I mean, you know, you could roll a dumpster out and there'd be tags all in the cracks and shit, and they cleaned all that shit. I don't know. Them must have been mad overtime for those guys.
Basically, they had the city had a fucking culture, a rich and culture of graffiti art for people to enjoy, you know, and then they gave it all up, and now the shit's looking bland with some dark ass brown. I like the way they buffed the walls to have it clean for when I want to go paint, but I hate that they're gonna buff my shit in 2 or 3 days. And motherfucker, like two or three people seen it, and I gotta take a nighttime picture of this to prove that I actually did it to myself.
Graffiti was like, man, that was like a rejuvenation, man, for me at the time when it's like, you know, it was needed. It was like, okay, what do you do now? You're in life, you know, you this teenager who's looking for, you know, some answers, looking for some direction, and you just don't want to like do what everybody else is doing or the way they're doing it. And when graffiti hit, for that time, that moment, there was nothing else that could replace it. Nothing.
We gotta go.
Yeah, it was just like a, you know, it was a great time, you know, to like really see something start from nothing and then just explode.
We were getting writers from the south side, from the north side, from the west side. I mean, it was just exploding everywhere, and the city couldn't keep up with the graph that was going up on the trains and on the walls and on the rooftops and on the buses. It was just so massive. And so many people were doing it. It actually overwhelmed the city, and they would put special graffiti task forces, for the police that would come after, just specifically geared towards writers. They would be spending millions of dollars. It would make the paper at least once a month. So it would be in the paper, somebody getting busted, or this station got bombed over the weekend. North and Clybourne got hit, and it's gonna cost so and so hundreds of thousands of dollars to clean it up. And I mean, it was just so exciting. Plus the attitude of the people, and I think this reflects on the hip hop music itself. But the attitude of the people was a lot more righteous, if I can use that word, more pure. They weren't about wanting to fight and show themselves as strong men. They were doing graph because they liked doing graph, and they were trying to get their names up, and they liked the idea of fame. They weren't trying to make money. No one was thinking that they were going to get rich and do canvases off of it. It was street. It was ghetto. It didn't move to no suburbs. It was strictly Chicago. It was strictly an urban thing. And for the most part, it was strictly a poor people thing, because rich people ain't riding on the bus and the train.
I saw us really having to lay grounds and have the city bombed, at least at one time, all bombed, so that everybody who's coming after that could always connect to that point in time and say, that's what we need to do.
So when we would go and do a piece, we would take our backpacks and our bags and with the cans and hop on the bus and hop on, from the bus, hop on the train and get to the tunnels or get to the train yards and start bombing. You come back from doing a piece and you smell like aerosol. You got the half empty cans in your backpack, and they're doing the jingle jangle sound in your back, and you're on a train and it's making that noise, and the people are looking at you and they can smell the aerosol coming off of your body. And you got paint all over your hands, you got paint on your lips and everything. But that's real, yeah, that's real. That's that element of being a part of the ecosystem. And when I say ecosystem, I'm talking about the urban ecosystem. One part supports another. So if you're gonna do a piece on a train, it would seem natural that you would take the train to get there.
Well, like the act of it, if you really think about it, was pretty much a fucking performance piece for the artist doing it.
Fun as hell.
You weren't necessarily a criminal before you did this, and this made you a criminal, but you had to learn to put yourself in that criminal element. If it was the first time you were breaking the law, you had to get used with that for yourself. And the performance part about it was like, you had to learn to be cautious. You had to learn to be careful. There was definitely that adrenaline once you did it. I don't think drugs even ever fucking lived up to the type of shit that I felt the first times that I was painting, or like the first time I did a live CTA train, or the first time that I, even the first time I did a tag off the line or some shit like that.
Well, to me, when I first started coming up, the best people that had style was I would say Trickster, Slang. Those motherfuckers were just doing styles, you know, Orko. I don't know if too many people heard of Orko and shit, but I'm sure they have and shit, they should. But yeah, those cats, man, their color schemes, they're like, what was that? Masters of the Midway or something like that. They did in this place down by Chinatown, the Wall of Fame and shit, man. And when I started seeing those, like, you know, colors and like outlines, the way he was outlining stuff, that like made me, you know, progress in my piecing style a little bit more and shit.
The best writers are people who have personality. They're street characters, man. You know?
Yeah.
It's character, man. It's just naturally emits.
You know, like I said, influences, not bites. But a lot of my influences from style came from Trickster, Tyrone. Tyrone, to me, is still one of the best graph writers in the city, if not in the country. I just love Ron to death, and I love his style. Ron, without a doubt, was Chicago's king of style. He would do things with letters that were so fresh and so original. It was an enjoyable experience to watch him do some letters, even on paper. It was great to watch Ron work.
It's good. All right, check this out. This is my man Denz once again. This is my man Most. That's Trickster. All right, tight. Rome. Pick a name. All right, this is my mentor, man.
Exactly.
How you gonna front?
This is where I got started from.
This is the man, right?
Like that. I'm saying
he's a man. He make it. I like how he get modest about it, though.
no, but I do that. Modesty, you know what I'm saying, is a better part of valor, as the saying goes. So what I'm saying is,
man, he the one gave me style, man. He the one made
at
me
times.
Man, man, Joe.
Yeah, he right. My man right here, he right. He right. You know why? Cause this man here, he the man. He the man.
He gonna get
Cause you know
modest
why I
about
say he
it.
the man? Cause when we was sitting
And
up
that's
here,
what's dope about
when
it,
we
too.
sitting up here playing with trying to piece stuff together, and he already got his shit together. Damn it, you know what I'm saying? But he ain't down on you cause you down.
Right.
He uplifting you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So, man.
Most heads wouldn't even paint on the wall with somebody that wasn't fresh or something, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, oh,
Yeah, we
man,
went through that phase.
paint down the street.
We
you know
did.
what
We
I'm
went through that
saying?
phase, but I saw in order for the movement to grow, you had to be able to share and contribute and also nurture. Man, I've been around for about 20 years now. About 20 years, you know, through the first part of my career, I say for the first 10 or so, I was real hardcore, and then doing that second half, I was pretty much I was doing a lot of mixed. I started applying my talents to different fields, and I was doing some traveling and this and that. But every once in a while, I still come back out and rap, you know, and do some stuff. But that's primarily you know how long I've been out, 20 years and stuff, and in that field as far as graph. But totally, I've been out maybe about 22 to 23 years in the hip hop movement. You know what I'm saying? B-boying, breaking. You know what I'm saying? Graph and graph writing and the whole nine, you know.
I mean, we had our egos. I mean, that's what graph is. That hip hop is, you know, it's battling. It's whose crew could get up the most, you know. How many times can you get it up? Who's doing the outsides? Who's doing the fill-ins? You know, who's got the tightest styles? Who's got the best characters? Graffiti as a whole was all those things. You have crews that will battle with one thing or the other, but if you calling yourself king, you got to do everything. I mean, I've heard that many times before, and that's actually one of the truest statements of, you know, just of graffiti, I think. The spray paint thing, I think it was our own art form. You know, we was influenced, you know, by the earlier New Yorkers, and there's even writers that don't even know what most of their influences are. These days, I think it's even worse because everybody's directly learning from magazines. There's no true structure and style. Some of the guys in Europe, I think, take their influences outside of New York and just completely start it over. I like primitive carnival letters pretty much just as much as I like wild style. For wild styles and orthodox, it makes no sense.
Style was very important. Letters were very important, but in the 90s, it started to be more important, the whole entire piece, the composition of the whole piece itself. And that included characters, color schemes, backgrounds. I mean, these are good and they're important, but I don't think that they're the be-all, end-all. You know, to me, it's about the letters. It's always been about the letters. You know, you had to have your own style, and that style had to flow. You know, the letters were alive. It was like they were a living organism. They would have a flow and emotion all their own. You had to have balance also within the letters. One side couldn't be heavier than the other. You had to have a nice flow, but yet a balance of it all. And it had to jump off the page or jump off the wall or the train and be alive.
Yeah, it was all about developing your style and trying to get wild with your letters and being real neat. I don't know.
I was gonna say, when you were talking about style, it's like, God, it's just like life, man. Like, style is your individuality, and if you don't have any of that, it's like, just die.
Bunch of like whack crews came out and shit. Like kids didn't seem to know like anything and shit. You know, they was just like dissing everything. You know, like going over old pieces. You know, doing just goofy shit. And I don't know. And it just seems to be like digressing right now and shit. It seems to get worse and worse. Like now, kids don't even seem to want a piece no more. You know, they're just doing throw ups, doing whatever and shit. And they don't even got any styles, man. They're just looking at too many magazines and stuff, you know, like they gotta revert and go back into the past and shit and look at the old school writers and shit from, you know, from like that time and stuff, you know, and realize, man, that it's about, you know, rocking shit, you know, like nobody's rocking shit no more. It's about getting up, doing the dirt, you know. Like we were out on the trains every day, you know, hanging on train stations every day, hooking up, you know, at Belmont, man. We was just huge gatherings of like writers every day and talking about getting together and going bombing, rocking shit, you know, from fucking end to end, you know.
Oh man, back then it was like the best thing, like the best thing about it was, which, you know, looking at it now, you know, you could do pieces on the line. You could do a couple pieces on the line and that shit would just stay for years until something happened to it or some sucker went over it or whatever. So, you know, people were bombing, but you didn't have to put in as much work like you do now. Now you got to put in 5 times as much work, you know, just because the shit's gone instantly. So if you want to get up, you're getting up. You got to get up. You got to be out there. You know, being on the roof, 3 in the morning, trains are going by every, you know, half hour or whatever, and you're up there with your homie just painting, chilling. That is probably the best. That's the funnest. The most hardcore shit I think I've ever done. I've done the yards in the daytime wearing CTA gear and doing trains in the tunnel. When them trains are rolling in and you squeeze out from the wall and you're fucking moving alongside them and they're still slowing down and you're busting throw-ups, that's the shit. That's more fun than painting pieces in the yard in the night. That's not as scary anymore. It used to be scary when I was young, but doing sides while the trains are rolling up in the tunnels, I think that's hardcore. That's fun. Well, back then, since there was so much graffiti, the culture was more vibrant. You know, shit was going on, and especially with the rules, you know, you had to obey them a lot more. Nowadays, it's like kids are taking names from old scores, and then you tell them, and they give you the finger, you know, and then they catch a beat down because of that, and they don't understand why. And you know, back then there was just so much that, you know, you knew the names, so you didn't, you know, there wasn't the problem of taking other names. And you know, young kids. Chicago was kind of tough. I think some of the old school crews back then didn't like to show new scores. They felt like, I don't know, you know, I always felt like that back then. You know, we had to learn. We had a couple people that were real cool with us, but we had to learn everything the hard way. You know, so, and I felt like, you know, my views, a lot of Chicago style got lost because certain crews didn't want to open their doors and get new kids, and they ended up dying out. And you know, now they're coming back, and their styles are still back in the day, and they had no youth to keep them current. And if you don't stay current, you get left behind. And that's the way it is.
But I think the thing that made me stay with it is the idea of making it come alive. You know, when I would see a wall, I had done, you know, 8-foot tall letters with my name, man, it felt good. You know, it was like, man, you know, that's me. You know, that's me up on that wall. You know, that's me bringing life to the neighborhood. You know, that's me. That's my heart put on a building.
Originally, how I got into it is like Slang said, a lot of the old shows would show trains rolling by in New York, and once I saw that, it's from that moment on I knew that I was going to do that for the rest of my life in some way, some form or another. Oh, I did everything. Buses, trains, train stations, tunnels, anything I could put my name on, I did it.
With us, it was the experimentation, and that was part of the reality of the experimentation, which was saying, okay, I'll risk going to jail if it takes that. You know, just like other people who have fought for what they believe in, they risk going to jail. But if that risk isn't there, then it's like, I mean, then what's the use of fighting for it? It's like you don't have to fight for anything. It's just saying, okay, we'll give it to you. It's nothing. But when they're telling you that it's like, hey, we're willing to lock you up for it or take your freedom, you know, for it. And which is funny too, because then, you know, a lot of writers got locked up and they were still getting up in jail.
We were young people that were having to face the reality of society. And society, just as previous to when we got involved in hip hop, society's underlying goal, whether it's conscious or not, is to destroy youth, to destroy brown youth and poor youth. And amazingly, hip hop, in a sense, I feel like it saved our lives for 4 years and got us real excited about very creative things and competition in a positive and negative way, but still competition perhaps in a less destructive way, you know. But what happened later was that we, you know, society just seemed to take us out one by one. And I think ever since then, even every generation is the numbers have gotten less. You know, writers have still been as powerful and productive and strong, but it almost seems like, you know, we come to a point now in the modern day where, you know, we have like a Zeb and a Flow. You know, these are some of these young writers that are coming up, but what's sad is it's like only 20 of them. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, at least back in the day, I could go to the Belmont and see, you know, and see 50 people and then know that they represented by extension a whole nother, you know, 200 people, you know, and by extension another 500 people. So there was a, you know, a huge group of young people that you could feed off of. So I think, I guess what I'm bringing up is a challenge that hip hop has been facing just generation after generation, as society has become more harsh, and as racism and economic bias is really taking its toll on destroying young people and their families around Chicago especially.
As far as graffiti is concerned in the Greens, and that's Cabrini Green for everybody who doesn't, you know, follow and know the, you know, the tales of Cabrini. I mean, we put it on the map on another level, man. Just like, you know, going out bombing, you know, putting that artwork up where it's like, you know, nothing before. Like I said, even for a lot of people in Greens, like to let them know that there's like something else going on outside the walls of Cabrini Green, because a lot of people in Cabrini Green have never been or ventured far from Cabrini Green. And you would be surprised at how that place was like, you know, their own self-made prison. But when they saw this stuff happening, you know, like me and Demo and then the other, you know, cats, you know, from other crews, like coming over and bombing, you know, and putting pieces up, it was like, whoa, you know, what is this? What is this all about? Where did this come from? And once they saw it and saw the energy, I mean, you should have saw the kids who like flocked to it like, man, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. Because there was a lot of young, you know, good, gifted artists in Cabrini and really didn't have an outlet to like express themselves. You know, some of them because they didn't have money to like go and get materials and supplies, you know, that they needed to do the artwork, whether it be just like coloring pencils and paper. If you ain't got it, you ain't got it, you know. Hard as hell in the Greens. And like I said, at the same time, you know, it deterred a lot of would-be, you know, hardcore gangbanging, you know, kids like, you know, gave them another outlet, another avenue to like say, well, you know what, psst, I know it's gonna happen if I get into this, you know, this gangbang deal, because it's like, it's, you know, it's showing you, it's like the life expectancy in that man can be so short.
What drew me to graffiti was, it was like, I guess the lesser of two evils. I mean, I needed to be mischievous, but I didn't want to be a gangbanger.
And the idea of escaping the gang culture is also something I think that's original to Chicago. You know, a lot of people, I mean, in the neighborhood, you either a hip hopper or a gangbanger. You know, that's the way I remember it.
it's totally up to you. You know, you can go out here, you know, you can put gang signs up, or you can come out here and you can put up these pieces, man, that, you know, that people are going to be wondering and asking questions about because it's something beautiful.
In the beginning, they wouldn't even chase you through the tunnels, man. So it was kind of easy getting away from them, you know, like pretty much all you had to do was just like jump on the tracks and shit, and you know, and just like a lot of times, like in the beginning, they wouldn't even get down there until like this dude Angon, you know, then he like fucking formed this whole like graffiti task squad and shit. They had to get taught from the motherfuckers in New York how to catch graffiti writers and shit, you know, and they were still punks, man. They were still punks. A lot of times, man, they couldn't even catch anybody and shit, you know.
The Vandal Squad, yeah, the Vandal Squad was no joke. Those niggas were on your ass. I mean, twice, I'd be sitting on Belmont before I had a car, I was young, waiting for the fucking bus, and these bitches would drive by coming from getting off the train, and it would always be Mazira and Lady Jane, and I would see them peep me, and I'd have my pager with Erie on it and marker probably, and they would, well, the one time I had my pager with Erie on it and a marker, and I seen them go by and they fucking broke their necks. I said, oh shit, and I was with my girlfriend, so I gave her all my shit, and sure enough, they came around, you know, hey, bro, what's going on? You know, blah, blah, blah. So they searched me, I didn't have nothing, and they ended up fucking throwing us in the car to catch the bus, to put us on the bus, because they felt bad they made us miss the bus. But yeah, I mean, they'd be everywhere. They would just be driving around. If they seen you, if they knew you, they would stop you and, you know, what are you doing, where you going? I don't know. They used to always be everywhere. Everywhere you turn, they'd be there. Sometimes they'd be on stations, like they knew you were going to rock them. You know, like go down to North and Clybourne, and sometimes they'd just be there, like they knew, I don't know. They were on it. They had a list. I seen the list, that fat of computer printout, that fucking paper, and everybody's name, all their info, and who they've been arrested with, what crew they're on. I mean, they were on it. But they ain't stopped me. I'm still going.
You ever been arrested for this?
No, man. In my whole career, I got pinched for graft one time, man.
Lucky.
My whole career, man. And you know what I'm saying? That's funny because it wasn't like I wasn't out there, you know what I'm saying? One time I got pinched, man, being greedy, man.
Started on the trains at like 97 and 98, and pretty much just all been that since then.
How many trains have you had?
As of right now, 440. It gets bad sometimes. I mean, when we went with you, we got chased. I mean, we got surrounded. And we were pretty lucky to get out of there. I was surprised. I figured at least one or two of us were going down. It didn't look too good. You gotta be super careful, because when they get you, they stick it to you. Oh my God. being in court for like a straight year is not fun.
Have you ever been arrested?
Yeah, I've been arrested a shitload of times. You know, probably more than most guys because I just did a lot of crazy shit. But yeah, I've been arrested 28 times, but maybe 3 or 4 of them were for other shit. You know, stupid shit. I don't know. Yeah, I've been arrested a shitload. Everybody, you know, it goes with the territory. You're gonna get arrested, or you're not gonna get up and you're gonna be a fucking permission law faggot.
It's county every time. Every time it's county. Dick doctor every time. It was pretty depressing. I mean, it's like, come on, man, that's fucking. I'm waiting on a goddamn train. I don't belong in here.
I had caught a case in '94. Was on 2 years of conditional discharge. Week before I was getting off, I got arrested doing a tag on a train. I don't know what I was thinking. It's 3 in the morning. You know better. You know the train was packed with. Everybody on the train was a fucking cop but me and Flask. And I busted a tag. I got up. The whole train got up. They locked me up. Whatever. And so I caught another case on my probation. And then like 3 days later, long story, we did a whole freight. The cops ended up coming to my crib because they knew I did it. They were trying to get me to go down to the station. They were trying to arrest me without a warrant, and I wouldn't go with them. And they're talking all this shit about, well, when you go to court in a couple days, we're gonna be there and we're gonna lock you up. And I said, all right, that's fine. My lawyer will be there. You know, we'll work it out. Blah blah blah. So then, the next day, I get a call from the newspaper. It's Royko, Mike Royko, and he's telling me, you know, about, you know, yeah, we'll do this story, you know, kind of like he's on my side of this whole thing, because the cops would come to my crib all night long and they'd call me. And anyway, so they must have got him to call me to try and do a story because they knew I would open my mouth. You know, I like to talk a lot of shit. And so I'm talking to him and I'm like, fuck these cops, and, you know, they're not going to stop me and this and that, and just getting rowdy. And then the next day when I went to court, well, like 2 days later when I went to court, the fucking cops and the judge and everybody had the newspaper, and it's this big ass article, and Royko's calling me an idiot, and I'm in there fucking fuck these cops. And so they gave me 6 months. right there. I mean, they didn't even waste any time.
What's it like being in county for painting?
You feel like a pussy. You feel so embarrassed. What are you in here? Murder. Attempted murder. Rape. Oh, I'm in here for graffiti. It's like, it's wrong when you got the Kings on the one side, you got the GDs on the other, and you got the neutrons right in the middle. Oh, nothing but ham sandwiches all day. Ugh. It's not a good time.
You know, when I was there, I had a good time, to tell you the truth. I mean, I smoked weed every day. I got everything that could happen to me to be lucky. That was lucky happened to me. I was put in a room with a dude who did tattoos, so once they knew I could draw, you know, it was on. I had a good time. I was locked up with this guy Nee from UAC, and he was on the 3rd floor. I was on the 4th floor. His floor was kind of rowdy compared to where I was at. I was with a lot of old timers, so everybody was cool, but he was down with the younger guys. And anyway, they fucked us up and separated everybody, and they stuck me down there with him. So me and him were just chilling, man. Got high every day and drew, ate. I ate a lot. I gained weight in jail. I don't know how the fuck that happens. Fuck it. But it was alright. Should try it.
You know, fucking spray paint was invented in Chicago, and you can't even fucking buy a can of paint in Chicago.
Are you serious, man?
Yeah, that shit was in the paper the other day.
It was invented in Chicago.
Fucking that in the fucking 8-hour workday.
They banned the sale of spray paint, the possession of spray paint in the city of Chicago, and the state made graffiti a felony offense. And I think that those two things, you know, and you talk to any graffiti writer around the world, anyone around the world, and everyone knows what impact that has had on Chicago. Everyone can see it. You know, I remember talking to Civil, who was like one of the most hardcore bombers of the 90s, and he said, man, he said, I'm trying, you know, against this buff. He said, but these, you know, he said, these motherfuckers are, he said, I'm hitting 10 walls a night and coming back the next fucking day. And I use curse words because to express his frustration, and it's gone.
And I don't know, it kind of became a game at first, you know, to see if we could tag out quicker than they can buff. but it turned out that they could buff quicker than we can tag. You know, we tried, but the city put up a good fight. You know, you got to give it to them because they knocked us out the box.
I think graffiti's dead because when we really got into it, it became a movement. Kids from all over the city were bombing, and we were getting together, having meetings just for the purpose of bombing. That shit doesn't happen anymore. And back then in the tight, you saw graffiti everywhere. Everywhere. Bosses were killed, chains were killed. You don't see that anymore. Outside pieces.
Yeah, when the 90s was so evil, the mid-90s, that's why they started the buff. And really why the buff be happening was because of these kids that hooked up with us. And it was like a finely tuned machine. And it was just like so evil. We fucking fucked shit up that they had like, Mayor Daley's like, man, the president don't even want to come to Chi no more.
Yeah,
you know?
Hey, graffiti is just an inner city activity for kids. You know what I'm saying? It's free to do. You ain't got you don't need
It's
no money.
alternative to gang.
You know,
do graffiti.
You know, it's like a little activity. Like it's like tennis.
Turning graffiti into a felony, what also happens, I remember like Upski, by the time I met him, he had like 13 arrests under his belt and had not had to serve any punishment really by that time. But then by the 90s, someone like Nike had 13 arrests under his belt and he had to do 3 to 6 months jail time just for graffiti, which was mind-blowing. I mean, you know, that is mind-blowing.
I remember this one brother, Dane, got busted on a rooftop, and it was a real good kid too. And he got busted, and they put a felony on him. It was his first time getting arrested, and they gave him a felony. And I remember seeing Dane like maybe 4 years later, and Dane was having trouble getting a job, a decent job. Why? Because he had a felony on his record. This was not a violent kid. This was a good kid, and yet he was now having trouble getting a job because he painted on a building. You know, he's going to have this problem with him for the rest of his life because of paint on a building, on a rooftop. You know, it doesn't seem like the punishment fit the crime. You know, it seems like a little overzealous to me.
So all these crazy restrictions that society put on Chicago, you know, this is the most oppressive city, I believe, the most oppressive city for artistic endeavors in the nation.
It's about, you know, like this freedom that this realer, more real freedom that we experience, opposed to just the this fictitious freedom. You know, everybody's free. If you go to work, you know, do your 9 to 5, pay your bills, come home and eat, go to sleep, watch the news, you're free. And for a lot of people, that just wasn't cutting it. And especially for the graffiti artists, you know, because you got this art in you, and it's not saying, well, you know, as long as you keep me contained, you know, that's the best place for it, and I feel free, you know, and you are free. It's like, no, it's like it was just something that had to be done, you know. It was like a inside yearning and fire that just said, I'm supposed to be doing this, you know.
The buff, that's, you know, the buff is the buff. It's fucked up.
Graffiti blasters.
It's fucked up. Graffiti blasters, it's fucked up, no doubt about it, you know, because, yeah, it's just, ain't no graffiti nowhere. City ain't working with writers or no, you know, as of now, it's like cut off, you know, like they ain't trying to help, nothing, you know, it's like you getting locked up if you're graffiti writing and shit, and, you know, everything going up is coming down, permission or not, you know, permission walls get buffed. You know, everything, community projects get buffed. It's like, it's a fucked up thing to me, because it used to be neighborhoods where there's, you know, pieces, you know, permission walls, nice things to look at, you know. None of that, you know. I mean, you'll see it here and there, some neighborhoods, but for the most part, it ain't like that, you know. And pieces on the lines, there ain't shit to look at. When you go cruising, you know, take a ride on the train, nothing to look at, you know. So it's fucked up, man, but it's just what it is. You know, that's just the stage that it's going through.
I would say the Buff deterred graffiti 1,000% more than the Vandal Squad, because now people don't even want, you know, what are you gonna climb a roof for and, you know, do a production on a line? It's just gonna get buffed the next day. I mean, we did the Return of the King's Wall in 2000 in the wintertime. Me, Skull, and Deed, we did nice red burners, and Skull did these trains wrapping around the side. One said 95th, one said Howard. And luckily we took nighttime flicks, because we came back about 8 in the morning and the shit was buffed already. Like, I couldn't believe it.
That shit now, I mean, like, now it's just like they put buffers in like train stations and like at the end of the line and shit. Sometimes you do a side, and by the time it gets fucking back to you, it's gone and stuff, you know. And that shit was whack, man. It was a good battle against the city and shit to try to keep on, you know, like staying up, you know, like you ain't getting rid of us, you know, like we ain't going nowhere. You can buff as many trains as you want and shit, but you still ain't gonna fucking stop me from bombing your shit, you know?
You know, I remember I found out some specifics about the blasters at this graffiti class that was conducted at DePaul University. And if I remember right, they have 25 trucks, 56 workers, and they're quite effective. You know, the city activated another law that like if you didn't clean the graffiti on your store or something like that, you could be fined. You know, so they were using intimidation on owners of businesses and things like that. But when these dudes came to speak to this class, man, they were, you know, they knew, I mean, they were highly confident. They knew that they had been successful, because this class was in 1996 or 97, okay? And they knew they had done their duty, and they were so ahead of the game now that they didn't even have to they didn't even have to try hard to stop graffiti anymore. And so that 90s generation, you know, that came in at 91 and then picked up and was, you know, probably hit its peak in 93 and 94, you know, and everyone before was just facing a type of repression that none of us had ever imagined.
The way I feel about the Buff and the way graffiti's going since the Buff came, basically I feel sorry for the viewers, the lovers of art, you know, because to me, fucking riding the train was like a free art gallery every day. I wish it was still. I wish everybody go do a wall tonight so I can get a free free trip to an art gallery tomorrow.
Chicago, when writers come here from out of state and out of the country, they see it. They like, man, I see where all the graffiti was. They're like, I see all the brown marks, and you know what I'm saying? It's evident. And that's basically just obliterated soul.
was just like, it seems like yesterday there was tags everywhere.
It wasn't yesterday, nigga. It was like 10 years ago.
You don't want to make graffiti seem like an asshole art, you know? That's what a lot of people did, you know? Like, they overdid it. These kids were getting chunks of wood and getting sandpaper, big chunks of wood like this, and stapling it, and then doing toy-ass tags, man, with their big-ass Jenko pants, man. You know, that Jenko shit? You know, and they have their tongue pierced, and like, what do you write, dude? What do you write? Do you write? Man, I'll big slap you. And I'm not Mr. Tough Guy either, man, you know?
You know, but people kind of who jump in and out of graph, or they're in it for a few years to see, you know, what they can get out of it. I don't think that's the right attitude to have. I don't think you should say, what can I get out of graph? It's more like, what can I put into graph, you know, to benefit the hip hop community.
What we did, man, you know, I can't blame all these writers. There's a whole school of writers out now, man. I don't know where I'm gonna tell you, I don't know where your styles came from. I know where they came from, but they didn't come from here. I'm talking to you right now because this is something I want y'all to understand. Your styles came from these magazines, and most of y'all don't even understand what you're doing. You don't understand the mechanical techniques because you figured it out. You think you figured it out. But I see dudes out there, man, they go out and they can do a beautiful piece, but can't do a single clean outline, which is amazing. They can't even do a straight line, right? They can't even do an effective tag, you know? And what happened is basically this is what it is. If you look into an older generation and you want them to influence you and you see their styles and it's super dope and this and that, but they telling you, fuck you, get your own shit, right? Then you like, well, damn, I'll just go look at a magazine or a book, right? You know, same thing as anyone's gonna do. And then you start copying what you see there.
Permission walls nowadays, you know, it's a way just for people to get out. Sometimes they only got time on the weekends. You know, they have to fit in their schedule with their regular life. When you're a kid, that's when you get to be out and do your thing, and you ain't worrying about nothing really if you're living under your parents' roof.
Those motherfuckers
It's
are
a straight
graffiti
ghetto.
artists, we're graffiti writers. That's the difference.
I mean, the walls, there's guys that put tape on the walls for straight lines. That shit's straight whack, you know what I'm saying? Or straight chop you up. You want a straight line? That's me, I'll do your straight line for you. You know, don't put tape on the wall.
Like me, I'd rather sit there, like if there's a fill-in across the street from a permission wall, I'd rather look at the fill-in that's in a weird spot than some practicing ass fucking Paper King fucking same old shit permission wall crap, you know? I mean, hey, some of them get their props, some of them get their due respect because they try to go out and maybe hit one illegal thing and get their shit in a magazine, which is kind of whack. Someone's got to put a stop to that shit. You know, you can't get discouraged. You gotta have that fucking desire to rush to just be like, ooh.
I won't even notice. Oh, how so? I'll be too busy looking good.
Man, new graffiti, man, it is off the fucking hook what's going on now. You know, I think a lot of old guys don't like the new guys because they feel threatened, but I embrace that shit. My first fucking like eye-opener was when I went to Paint Louis in 2000, and I seen the shit, you know, kids from Nashville were doing. You know, you never think there'd really be writers from Tennessee or wherever, but just the, you know, just the art quality of the walls that they were doing, I thought were fucking amazing. You know, this kid Pose, I think Pose is raw as hell, man. That motherfucker, I remember seeing him up back in the day when he would try to tag and, you know, do his fillings and shit on the line. That was straight, but just his fucking styles now, you know, I don't want to be on his jock. I think that nigga's raw. I think he is. People don't like him, you know, whatever, fuck him. I think he's dope. Wicked. Shit is way more wicked. The wild styles nowadays, you know, I feel like that was the shit I always tried to draw, and these guys are doing it the way I, you know, like I try to envision it, but I could just never really draw that shit like that. Dude, there's There's some fucking good shit out there. But then it's, you know, then it's permission wall shit. You know, yeah, anybody could fucking rock a permission wall.
Why you need to go to permission wall practice? There's fucking tons of bridges, tons of railroad tracks, tons of shit. Just find it, man. If you're worried about someone seeing it, trust me, someone will end up fucking seeing that shit. As long as Mayor Daley's buff fucks don't get to it, then you're fine, man.
Buff fucks.
You'll be fine, man. That's because you can't rely on permission walls. It's like I don't know. I never was raised on permission walls. Like some of these kids are just raised on permission walls. Like they practice, they draw, they practice, and then they go over and over. To me, I want my shit to either stay up or get buffed. I don't want no one going over it the next fucking week, you know? Permission walls, man, I don't know. That's just kind of fucking, to me, that's just like cheating. Straight up cheating, dude. It's like kneecaps. Cheating. Man, it's like, fuck, dude. I'm sure there's fucking spots that ain't gonna get buffed. If you just fucking use your head a little, do the fucking work, and travel around a little, you're gonna find shit.
I think like as a culture, the level of life quality has dropped. I mean, you know, people are fine with someone not saying thank you when you buy your fucking cheeseburger at McDonald's.
You know, I think the idea of not being able to ride the train and not seeing pieces, you know, the colors and the letters and the characters and the background and the style, I think that actually hurt the city more than it helped it, you know, because, come on a rooftop, how is that hurting anybody, you know? Who sees that other than the people on the train? And what are you watching on a train anyway, you know? You're going to look at bare rooftops? What is that? There's nothing to see with that, you know? But when you ride by and you see the colors and you know, it gives a certain life to the city. You know, it gives a vibrancy that you know the city has. It's like when you go to the train stations or you go downtown and you see the people playing instruments and you know, maybe dancing or singing for money on the street. You know, it's a part of urban culture. You know, without that, you kind of miss something. You know, something seems like it's missing. And it's the same with Graph. You know, when you don't have these type of things, it seems like something's missing in the city. You know, it seems like they removed a vital organism. You know, that was like I said, a part of the ecosystem. And I have to go back to the idea of the urban ecosystem. Okay, you remove graffiti, and something's gonna fill that spot. Okay, you got brothers who used to write, and now what are they gonna do? You know, drug deal, gangbang. I bet you that's where most of them are going. You know, they're not going to art school. They're not like, oh, okay, I couldn't write no more. I'm not gonna do graffiti, so I might as well go to art school. That ain't the option. You know, the options are what's in front of them: gangbanging, drug dealing, getting into trouble.
You know what I'm saying? The gang culture took over. All them kids that were bombing in its heyday, now they're, you know what I'm saying? They started gangbanging, and now
I can't tell, man, because look at the internet. Look at the internet. There's graffiti everywhere on the internet. They got magazines.
Yeah, but that's internet. That's people not Chicago. That graffiti ain't from here. Ain't no graffiti here. It's just dead. The movement is dead here in the shot.
You know, so, I mean, you know, people were dying from gangbanging. But the thing is, a lot of them really didn't. They didn't really love gangbanging. They just thought they had nowhere else to go. So they settled for gangbanging. Writers love writing. And even the writers who died, and God, you know, rested our souls, may they rest in peace, they love what they were doing.
Graffiti's the shit, man. You gotta love it, man. It's out there. It's the rawest fucking art form out there. I mean, damn, I go to museums. I try to appreciate that shit, but I would like to see a fresh new fucking piece that's with some raw ass time. I mean, it's time for some respect for graffiti. Basically, it's on every fucking TV commercial you see right now. And it's not like we didn't think of the ones bombing the trains. Now you see Target and advertisements all over the trains taking our fresh ass ideals, basically.
The last big thing that happened in art was pop art. And then after that, what's after that? Graffiti. And it's just not, it's not being documented like it should be, and there's so much to it. I mean, globally, it's not just Chicago, it's not just New York, but it's become something that's just incredible. I mean, you're looking at people with with no formal training. This is all self-taught artists and passed down from one generation to the next, and it's just it's really primitive. It's like the caveman writing on walls, you know.
Shit, Picasso fucking said he would have did graffiti if he had the balls.
If we really hit Chicago like, you know, like Chicago was supposed to get hit, then it's like it would have been too late for the Buff. If Chicago had gotten hit like it was supposed, it was just like, oh, you know, it's too much at one time. It's too much at one time. Then it's like no way in the world they could have, like, you know, they could have caught up unless everybody just decided to not do graffiti anymore.
You can't stop people's freedom of will. You know what I'm saying? That's all they trying to do is stop my freedom of will. I ain't hurt nobody. I ain't killed nobody. Let me display myself. Truth of the matter is, if a rich white motherfucker can say let the world be my motherfucking canvas, then a poor motherfucker in the ghetto should have more canvas than any motherfucker around. Because we ain't got shit but this damn world kicking our ass. And that's just it. Fuck the Buff.
If everybody stops, then graffiti is dead. You know, it's dead.